All right. How you getting on? You good? Ah, look. This is it anyway. Feels like we're on the end of it anyway. Huh? Feels like we're coming to the end of this thing anyway, huh? Yeah, look, you're all right. This bearded woman today touched my son's foot. She stopped me and she's like, and I kind of felt bad. I was like, I'm assuming you're vaxxed, you know. I was walking around. He kicked off his socks as per. You know. Yeah. He's always kicking off his socks. But then she touched his foot, and I was like, "Oh, whoa, fucking rum tum tugger, what's you fucking going, bearded woman?" Should I go? And then she goes, "He's beautiful." And then she goes, "Do you know what's not beautiful?" And I was like, "Oh God, here we go." Her 13 dogs were locked in a fucking shed, and 3 of them died. And I'm like, and then I said, "Well, look, at least there is some beauty in the world," and I kind of nodded towards my son, which is low key. That's low par, shite par. And she also thought that was shite patter. She was like, "What?" I'm like, "But what do you know what I mean? What am I supposed to do with that? You tell me about dead dogs." I did an improv class with a phenomenal improviser by the name of Will Hines, and he had been doing a couple of improv classes, and he had actually joined us in Mob for a live improv. What we did when we were doing some mob theatre improv. And after the class, he was like, "Can I just bring something up? A lot of you Irish, whenever you initiate a scene, you always seem to bring up dead dogs. You always seem to bring up like a dog being dead, or like poking a stick at a dead dog." I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, pretty much like every scene. There's like a dead dog." I'm like, "Oh God." We're only a handful of years away from people who, God, for the worst thing that could happen on a house with the bitch of, people don't say that about dogs anymore. The bitch of the house would have a litter of dogs, and they'd be like, "Oh no, don't show that," and the little people were like, "Fucking give me them fucking dogs." I'll take care of the dogs. Just give me the dogs. Just put them all in a bucket, and I'll make sure they find a good home. Like, people, honestly, ask your ma or dad if they ever heard about what would happen if, God forbid, the bitch would have a litter of pups. It's so sad, honestly. That's so bad. Just give me the dogs. Hanging, stapling signs about newsagents being like, "Any dogs need a good home." any buckets of dogs going. Fucking show me the fucking no promotion, you pricks. any honestly, I take a good home. I live right by the river. I can bring my own sack. It's a sack. Look, honestly, we this nation is built. You know that thing in Vigo, Vigo the Carpathian from in Ghostbusters 2, where he's like, "I sat on a throne of scars on a river of blood." That is the nation of Ireland, unfortunately. All right, I'm gonna move away from this. No, apparently, well, last thing on dogs. Maybe as an amateur historian who listens to this can confirm or deny this. I heard that in St. Anne's Park there's a wall of dog skulls. Apparently, that's the rumor. Is that the land used to be owned by one of the Guinness children. He was a bit away with the fairies, and I don't even know if he killed. I think he had dogs, and he kind of wanted their skulls on display. And there's a big wall made of that. Like that bit in like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he goes down and sees all the kind of the sons of Ego, the planet, who are the big load of bones. And I look at him and go, hey, that's not what I didn't go. I'm sorry, this is our first date. I don't know why I keep bringing a fucking dead dog. Do you have a dog? Well, I hope they're very much alive. For now. No, I wouldn't stab him. No, I do what they used. No, I'm not. So you'd be glad to know that I'm in my fucking car again. Yeah, out sleuthing. Speaking of dogs, looks like I'm bloody dogging. In my car, I'm out after hours in the car, with a microphone. Looks like I'm either a part-time sleuth or full-time dogger, no in between. But yeah, I feel like you're one in Nomadland. You're one. Fern was her name in Nomadland. Watch that. I tell you, I watched that. I watched that yesterday with Terry. And we still have a 1-year-old, so we don't really like it. We don't really like anything challenging. We're not really into anything that makes us like a bit sad, even for a second at the moment. But we like watching Lego Masters with Will Arnett. Where they're putting a lot of weights on a Lego bridge. Wholesome, not someone who's having to shit in a van. And getting sick and celebrating New Year's alone. It got me down big time. But I also felt like I kind of got visited, like It's a Wonderful Life, like I got visited by, an angel. Like I got the Scrooge. I had that, reawakening. What day is it today? I was just so grateful. I was just so grateful for the roof over my head, and I was so grateful to have, a full-time job, in the entertainment industry, and I was so grateful. I woke up so grateful, and I tell you, it totally dispelled this whole hashtag van life, van talk. Check out. So this is my van, and this is my, this is where I make my cold brew, and this is where Sebastian sleeps. He's a little sleepy right now. He's like a golden retriever, in the bed. When you just see someone that rich, you just know by their hair and teeth. I've said this before. Rich people, really rich people. We don't have many of them in Ireland, but really rich people, like hundreds of years rich, look like horses, look like real racehorses in a kind of hideously beautiful way, like a long and shiny, and muscles in their face. You know what I mean? You just see it in a really rich person. Someone with hair that nice, they may as well have a little Sims diamond over their head. It says billionaire. Do you know what I mean? My dad's an oil baron, And that's the thing that I never say. It's always like, here's the top 5 things I wish I knew, or the top 5 things you're going to need to start van life. And it's like, number 1, storage, And none of them are ever have a billionaire father. There's never any of the, but I can just tell, you know what I mean? And we don't have many of them, thank God. And the people that are, or even getting there, they out themselves so much. They almost don't seem comfortable in Ireland, being that rich. They're like, oh my fucking hell, this is a bit ropey. This is a bit ropey, because the whole energy of Ireland is the antithesis of that. Bono had a great told this parable on Conan O'Brien, and as you know, I love Bono, but he was kind of talking in defence. He was talking in defence, this is how much of a legend he is, of the people who hate him. Being like, just the thing about being Irish, He's like, tells this parable of, there's these 2 men, tilling a field? I clearly don't know what about. I'm not fucking one of them, right? There's 2 men working in a field, an Irishman and an American. And they are working, they're dirt poor. And they're walking home to their homes after a long day's work, and they walk by this hill, and on top of the hill is a big mansion. And the American says, one day I'm going to live in that house. And the Irishman says, one day I'm going to burn a fucking house to the ground. And that's the difference, The Americans believe in the idea that you can just work your way up and get to anywhere, and the Irish people are like, anyone who's up there is not my fucking cup of tea at all. You know what I mean? I tell you what is my cup of tea, though. The sponsor of this week's podcast, the Dubliner Irish Whiskey. Look, at this stage, you know everything there is to know about the sponsor of this week's podcast, the Dubliner Irish Whiskey. You know that they are a cool brand. They're a fine brand and a fine bunch of people. You know their cool, weird folklore history that may or may not be real. You know that they're a young, hip, in spite of all that shit I said previously, distillery out of the heart of the Liberties. You know this. And you also know they make a fine-ass whiskey. From the tipple on my tongue, that's a fine-ass whiskey. They may be hip and a little young, but they're a fine-ass whiskey. That's not too bad from off the top of the dome. But in being a cool, disruptive distillery, you also got to do a couple of collabs now and then. And they got a great collab now with Rascals. They've done this a couple of times at Rascals Brewery. But now they're doing a new beer cask range, and this one is the Smoked Stout. So as you know, the Dubliner, what they like to do sometimes is take their fine-ass whiskey, put it in a different barrel, age it for a little bit, give it just a hint. Never too much, never too much, never too much, but just a hint, so it can add to your drink, add to your cocktails. And in this case, they have a Smoked Stout flavoured whiskey. So it gives you the hint of peat that you might be after. If you're after kind of a smoky whiskey, but you don't want it going too far, you don't want to be like, oh my God, where am I? Boardnamona Gardens? You know, if you don't want to go too far, I highly recommend check out this Smoked Stout Rascals infused beer cask series that they have going on. Go to the dld.ie, get yourself some whiskey, and do check out some of the new beer casks. There's more coming up. I can't say more about that, but there's more coming up. And also, look, whether it's collabing with breweries or collabing with artists, yes, they are also fostering the arts here in Ireland. No, do check out, they do a cool project with Tebby Rex, doing a modern take on the Old Triangle, and it's actually class. Check it out on YouTube. But enough about them. Let's talk about me. Enough about the Eurovision and all that stuff. Look, I didn't want to do any research for this pod. I did 5 episodes talking about the Eurovision, whether it's on this main feed or on the Patreon. I don't want to talk about that. I don't. Last thing I'll say on the Eurovision. What was the name of your man who ended up coming last? What was his name? Neil, was it? Neil Poir, was it? No, I'm not having a go. I feel for him. I actually like the song. The highest compliment I can give it is I wouldn't turn it off. And some of the other songs I would have turned off. No, I felt from. So yeah, I don't want to talk about the Eurovision anymore. I want to talk about me. And I put the feelers out, guys, to people on my Patreon to ask me questions about myself. And here I am, fulfilling my ultimate fantasy of talking about myself to a large audience. So this is fantastic for me. So here, an old school Q&A pod on the Tony Cantwell Shitshow.
It's Tony Cantwell Shitshow.
Lovely stuff. I tell you, it's lovely doing one now off-piste, doing a nice pod off-piste, off-topic, Stay on topic. That'll be a big thing you'd hear on the boards back in the day, the old internet boards. They'd be like, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, My Chemical Romance album, topic. And then someone would be like, oh yeah, did you see them on Cribs? And then someone would be like, oh yeah, did you see POD on Cribs? And then people would be like, stay on topic, mods, ban them, Anyway, the good old days. We got a question here got a question for you, better answer now. I feel like I'm being really obnoxious today. David says, what podcasts do you listen to? David, at the moment, I'm trying not to listen to podcasts, believe it or not. One of my favourite podcasts of all time is Comedy Bang Bang. I'll tell you why in a second. One of my favourite podcasts is Comedy Bang Bang. It's definitely one that really got me into improv and improvised comedy and turned me on to a lot of very funny people like Will Hines, who I mentioned previously. That's a very funny podcast. It's always consistent. If you want to get into it, I recommend checking out their best of episodes, or if there's a comedian that you really like, likelihood is they've been on it, or someone from like UCB or an improviser, you should check it out. That's very funny. I haven't listened to it in a while. I was listening to a lot of Kind of Funny. These are former journalists from IGN. There is a video game podcast. It's not very funny, but I like them, and it's not even very good. It's just very consistent, and it gives you like daily video game news, which I read. I listen and read a lot of video game news. I probably absorb more video game news content than I do play actual video games. Similarly to like, I used to listen to Wrestle Me, is a great wrestling podcast, where one guy they're kind of two radio DJs, UK radio DJs who have, one is mad into wrestling, one was never that into wrestling, but one is like, it's encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling, trying to get the other one into wrestling, one WrestleMania at a time, and it's very funny, and I need to be in the mood for it. Again, I probably absorb more wrestling related, like, YouTube videos than I actually watch wrestling, I also similarly watch more videos breaking down comics, then read comics. I'm part of the problem. I'm part of the millennial. I want to see the reaction, not the actual content. It's not a problem. It's just I like it, and I like how digestible it is. Another great podcast I like is Blank Check with Griffin and David. This is actor Griffin Newman and film reviewer David Sims, and they actually started off being a Star Wars episode, a really weak Star Wars episode 1 podcast where the whole premise was they'd never heard of anything else. If Star Wars episode 1 was meant to be the first Star Wars film, then it had to be taken on merit that everything that's the first, and that there's no other mention of Star Wars, and they're trying to live in this for a while anyway, then they give up on it pretty quick. They try and live in this universe where episode 1 is the only Star Wars content, and what would that mean? And they break it down as if nothing else existed and try and put you in that kind of thought process of what would, which I love, of course. But now what they do is they basically take the filmographies of directors and look at directors who have had early success, and then they say Spielberg having a huge success with Jaws, for example, and then being given a literal kind of blank check to make whatever passion project that they want. So in Spielberg's case, it would have been, 1942, maybe that one, the one that didn't necessarily hit. That, the crazy off-the-wall projects that would never be given to like a rookie director. Similarly, I think The Abyss would be like James Cameron had the huge success of Aliens, probably. What would have been pre-Aliens? Am I missing something here? Or Terminator, of course, Terminator. Terminator works, Aliens works, and then he can make whatever he wants. He makes The Abyss, you know what I mean? So it's about looking at the whole filmography with that in mind, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy Wheel of Misfortune. With Alison Spittle and Fern Brady. I think it's so fucking raw, and they have such an incredible community of people sending crazy voice notes of shit they did. Basically, they spin a wheel, which is a topic, and they just bring up the most horrible, embarrassing, cringy stories from personal experience, and it's just so unapologetic, and they've got a great rapport, and I've been a guest on it. So if you want to listen to my episode about school, about a time I talk about entering a slow bike race, that's on there as well. But I'll be honest, I'm trying to get off the pods at the moment. David, I'm trying to get off the pods because I feel like, when you're enjoying something and you're wanting more of it and it's not fully satiating it, and it's kind of like the niggling little anxiety there. There's something going on, and and because I don't fully know what it is, but I know that I'm regularly wanting things on in my ears at all times. Not at all times, but any kind of downtime, I seem to, and I'm not uncomfortable in my thoughts, but I'm in a habit now where I kind of need to be absorbing a lot of content. So I'm trying to wean myself off podcasts just for a little bit, and I'll come back to it when I'm ready. I'm still listening to podcasts, but I'm trying to wean myself off listening to as many podcasts. So, and I usually always have a kind of self-improvement, audiobook on the go. I always have a kind of self-improvement one, a fiction one that I barely read, and then kind of I normally have a kind of non-fiction. And a great one I had was the Console Wars, all about Sega and Nintendo in the 90s. That was excellent. I'd love something else like that. If anyone could turn me on to anything else like that, something cool and non-fiction like that, but kind of dramatized non-fiction, I'd be into that. And the kind of the self-improvement ones I've listened to are like Atomic Habits. That's a good one. It's nice and snappy and bite-sized. And I'm also listening to 2 Easy Way Alan Carr audiobooks, 2 at the same time, which is probably not a good idea. This is Alan Carr, the easy way to quit smoking, to quit drinking, to quit emotional eating. So, not chatty man, not, hey, it's me, Alan Carr, baby. Whoa, I couldn't believe it, stop smoking, Not like that, Although I did have this joke, which was, I went to the shop to get Alan Carr's book on how to stop smoking, but they only had the Justin Lee Collins version. So now not only am I still smoking, but I keep pushing my girlfriend in front of cars. But there was too much going on with it, not that same Alan Carr. You might not even know who either these 2 people are, but so I'm listening to 2 Alan Carr books. So one is The Easy Way to Control Alcohol, not Quit Alcohol. Very clever on that. If they said quit alcohol, I tell you, I would have been a dog voiced by John Travolta bolted if I'd heard that. I don't know if you've seen Bolt. But yeah, what are we talking about? Yeah, so it's trying to control. I wouldn't mind having that in the back pocket. I think I was going through a time, and it was one of those where, like, you know, you haven't had a bad one, and you're like, wouldn't mind getting on top of this now when I haven't had a bad one, you know, where I'm not, because I'm barely drinking. I'll tell you, that's something actually I'm quite worried about, was when people go back to pints, because I haven't had like pints that level and drinking at someone else's pace in a while. I think we should all be very cautious of that. If you got like a wedding coming up, I'm going to a wedding in October. Like, if you got a wedding coming up, just team talk before we start. All right, guys, we haven't had pints in a while, okay? So let's just pace ourselves. Go for glasses if you need to, okay? You know, no one's a fucking pussy for doing glasses tonight, right? You know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm out of the habit. Sister Act 2. But another one I'm reading at the moment, or listening to, I call it reading, is Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Emotional Eating. Because I'm trying to be mindful, you know, and I'm very fucking mindful of the fact I put on 1.5 stone in the last year. And I'm not mad at that. You know, I'm not mad at that. I'm not angry. You know what I mean? You know, you go to Spain, you come back with a tan. You spend a year indoors eating to make yourself feel better. You're going to come back with having put on 1.5 stone. So it's like I'm totally comfortable that that's what I'm wearing, because that's what I was doing, and I'm not lying about that. Look at me, that's what I was doing. You know what I mean? And luckily, you know, my weight is yo-yoed for years, so I'm not too, you know, I'm not beating myself up about it. But the thing is, it's been a while since I've lost it the other way, and because I'm less active with the kid, the convenience is everything. I just need to do something about it. So I'm listening to that. And cycling more. I got a little foldable bike, and I'm cycling around. So, but I'm realised now. Look, you can do whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just realised now that my food consumption, the norms have just been stretched. You know, I would have had a pastry once a month. Now it's like 4 days on pastries. You know, and the 3 days are kind of spread out in the week. You know, eating a lot more bread. I probably went 3 years without eating bread, and I'm back on bread in a big way. And I'm having these fucking lethal Tijuana paninis from, what's it called? Is it called Donovan's? It's a tiny little newsagent cafe on Pier Street. And also just it's really cheap. It's like £3 for like this chicken and bacon panini with like a taco sauce. And I'm just lethal. And I love paninis. I'm totally on the panini like bandwagon. Some people think paninis are shite. My wife thinks paninis are shite. I'm so for the panini. I think the panini's great. I think, fuck you, fucking French stick. Get out of here. When the paninis came in the boom times, man, I was so like, I'm here for this. See you later, all of the bread. I'm here for the panini. I love paninis. But, you know, it's more bread than I'm used to, and my body is having a reaction in that it's getting more. So, yeah, I know you didn't ask this. Yazwa podcast. Yazwa podcast, check out. But I thought I'd tell you this is the kind of buzz I'm on. I'm finding myself just needing more content in my ears. And yeah, this is just my plan to get out of it. Listen to Alan Carr's chatty man. Why don't you just stop smoking? Why don't you stop smoking? Anyway, you didn't ask that at all. Okay, next up, Oisin Flynn says, what's your favourite pub? Also, can Superman outrun the Flash? No, the Flash is faster than Superman. I think that's actually been established many times. I'll tell you what pubs I'm most looking forward to going back into. The Long Hall. I love the Long Hall. I just love the decor. I love the fact that it looks exact same as it does now as it did when Phil Lynott was in there in the music video for Old Town. It reminds me of the Comet, even though I've only been in the Comet like twice in Santry when I was like 8. You know, you run in. My auntie lived around there. Go in there, get like a pack of King. And I kind of like that kind of, just love that kind of fucking, just give me the old boozer, you know. I tell you, if you can get the old snug in Bowes, I don't know if there's a better pint experience on earth. You know, right by the bar. That's a quality spot. I'm a big fan of, you know, I know Guinness Advisor only gave it a 6.5, but Grogan's, man, I miss Grogan's so much. I miss standing outside Grogan's. I miss freezing my arse off. I miss seeing so many people going in, getting their bits, whether it's Christmas or whether it's not. Yeah, I just love standing outside Grogan's, chatting shit to people. You know, sitting, just wrapping up, you know, and or just being inside, getting a nice burnt toasty. They're always burnt, and I love it. It makes me so happy, you know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the boozers being open. In fact, I got a great suggestion from Ben Clifford, associate producer of this pod, for a kind of best pubs to coincide with the relaunch. Maybe I'll do a little pub crawl. Maybe do a little audio pub crawl. Terry, it's my job. I have to go to the pub crawl. All right, next one here. What we got? Dara McIntyre. When will you perform in Vicar Street, Dublin, Ireland? Well, Dara, watch this space. Look, something really cool is happening. I can't say anything right now, but something cool is happening. Yeah. James Cahalan, what was your Scaldiest gaffer? So you're either meaning like a gaff party I had or went went back to. I've been very lucky in that my friends have been always very hospitable. I've always had friends who have welcomed, me back, so it's never been like too random. But I've been to a few random gaffers, and I tell you, the Scaldiest gaffer I was ever at was went back to this gaffer. And look, I'll be fairly candid, right? They're you would swear that the place was hosted by the fabulous Mr. Mistopheles. The amount of meow meow that was going around, honestly, there was like people just doing so much meow meow, meow meow, bath salts, and look, I haven't touched the stuff since since the New Amsterdam days. I don't know if you know this if you're young, but there was a time at about 2007. 2006, 2007, where there was a head shop boom in Dublin. I'll do a podcast on it at some point, where you could literally buy legal drugs that were arguably stronger than illegal drugs, and you would buy them in a hatch, and you could buy them 24 hours a day, and it was a horrible time. So this was years after this in London. Now I was fucking drunk. I was just really shit-faced drunk. And it was I wouldn't say it was even scaldy. It was just so weird, where there was a girl there who was hosting the thing, and she just kept getting changed into different dresses, and she had this kind of Asian entourage with her, and they were just like, no one was talking, and I was talking to this young Korean man who had a very loose grasp of English, and I was teaching him words. I was showing him things on my phone and just saying the words in English. And I was all like, banana. And he's like, banana. And then he was like elated with joy when I would say, yes, that's right. That's a right, Park. And he was like, yes. He's like, you're a great teacher. You're a great teacher. And I'm like, thank you very much. And I was feeling so good about myself. And I was in the middle, and then I was drinking to keep up with someone else's pace, and they were on the fucking meows. You know what I mean? So I blacked in at one point. I blacked out teaching this young lad, how to say sausage rolls or something like that, and then I blacked in, and I saw this woman. She was like, it's kind of sparkly hairdo, but like a bob, looked like kind of costume. And I was like, oh my God, I want a wig. Sorry, can someone get me a wig? Where's all the wigs? She has a wig. Where can I have a wig? And she one started crying. And she said to the host, she was like, I told you my hair was shit. And I was like, oh no, that's her actual hair. I've just been screaming at her hair from across the room for the last 5 minutes. That's There's no wigs. That's a woman's hair. It's another woman's hair. You've just offended, and she was really upset. And you know what? As like a 33-year-old man, now I would have like left. You know what I mean? You'd like, oh, I'm so sorry, but of course, being like 23, I stayed there for another 3 hours and just didn't talk to her. You know what I mean? That's what you do. You're in your 20s. You're like, I'm a grown up, but I'm still not going to be able to actually apologize or do anything about this. That's actually awkward and weird, so I'm not going to do it. So that was very scaldy. That was a very fairly scaldy one now, to be fair. Paul S. asks, what was the GOAT primary school lunchbox contents? Look, I don't think you can top the traditional tuck shop meal of, crisps, can of Coke, and a bar of chocolate. So me would be can of Coke, Banshee Bones, and a Mars bar. And we had a mate, Ozzy, and he always just had cash. He always had a shitload of cash. And he would buy to tell you the metabolism of being a preteen. He used to buy about 6 Mars bars, and he had this big leather jacket, and he would just stuff them all in his pockets. and there was a whole thing you had to do in school. Where in my school was that like they'd ring the bell twice. The first time was to freeze on the spot, and of course we all went full fucking Truman Show, be like acting like we were in the middle of walking across Abbey Road. Huh, for us the first bell. And then the second one was then you would walk to your line and go back in. But the whole thing was like freezing on the spot. And you weren't supposed to do anything after you froze. You were meant to freeze exactly where you were and then go into the next one. It's actually insane. We're all there in our grey uniforms freezing the spot in the response to this bell. So the bell, I remember one time the bell rang and you just heard this like rustling. You could hear it outside. And I looked over to Ozzy and he's just taking a bar out of his little breast pocket and takes a bite out of it. And the principal ran over and he was like, okay, come on. And he takes it off him. And Ozzy's like, all right, fine. And he walks away. And the second bell hasn't rung yet. And you hear rustling again. And Ozzy takes it out of his other pocket and takes a bite out of it. And then the principal went back. And you know when teachers are kind of being like cool, being like, oh, I can go all day. But they're not prepared for what's to come. Because then he walked away with the other bar and rustling again. 6 times. 6 different Mars bars he took out from various pockets and just cool as a fucking cucumber every time. So he probably had, and the bites were getting bigger, of course, because he knew they were going to go, And I just remember it was the most baller thing I'd ever seen. Was this 9-year-old eating 6 Mars bars. And I remember there was one, my ma worked in a tuck shop, and it was very sweet. She did it so she could see us at lunch, Like, literally only saw her for like 5 seconds, and she just gave me like a little sweets and be on the way. And it was so sweet she was there. Never thanked her for it. And I won't, unless she hears this. So she worked in a tuck shop, and I remember that there was a young kid went in, and penny jellies, you know what I mean, like a penny. So he went in with £1, and he bought 100 jellies. And this woman who worked there, one of the mams, because all mams worked in a tuck shop, gave him 100 jellies, like a basin of jellies, for the £1. And it was like, no, there wasn't much jellies left. And she was like counting them all up, like counting up the 100. And like, to this child, like this tiny, tiny child, was like, he gets 100 jellies there. And he was like, okay, that's fine. 1, 2. Gave him 100 jellies. And like her defense was like, well, yeah, customer's always right. It's like a fucking kid. So that was, I think the goat meal. I mean, I couldn't fathom that better, unless it was like, I don't know, unless it was something mad, like someone would surprise you by having like American candy or something like that, But I'd be happy enough with Mars bar, Banshee bones, can of Coke, maybe a tangy just for the buzz, keep you going, Roy the Rovers, keep you going over till, And I realize this now. My wife's pointed this out to me that like I used to go on my way to school. I would stop by Centra and I would get 4 apple Latisse squares, and I would get a litre of apple juice, and I would eat all the Latisse squares and drink the full litre of apple juice. And then by 1 o'clock every single day, of course, or probably by 11 o'clock, I was sad. I was depressed. I was uncomfortable in my own skin. I never once, and I still seldom do, this is something that's new for me, linked my mood with my diet whatsoever, or how I could focus, or my need to talk, or my need to be jittery, or anything like that. Never once linked my food intake into that. And I'd rather not know, to be honest. Thomas Doyle asks a question, and it's a great question. Who's the absolute worst person you ever met? Like after a few seconds in their presence, you just thought, fuck this prick. You don't have to name names, but just any mad stories of that kind. I mean, like, what kind of prick are we going for? Someone who's kind of like fucking highfalutin, acting like they're trying to put you down. You got some people you meet and they're like, they crack a joke and you might give them a courtesy laugh, and then you crack a joke and they just stare at you and like, yeah. Well, like dead-eyed, sort of like, you're like, people just don't laugh, don't even out of courtesy laugh, and they try and say something like shocking to kind of like, get your attention. Like, yeah. But then you end up actually just, if you talk to them for like 5 minutes, he seems to like warm their cold heart, and they end up just being sound. Those kind of people who just stare dead like, yeah. What do you think of that? You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't. I kind of just have. I kind of have this kind of built-in empathy, just because I've always tried to find a balance in like why some people have good things, and other people don't have good things. I've always tried to figure out an empathy. So if someone has a really good thing, like that I want, like say someone has. Obviously I was the first person in Ireland to have Pokemon Blue, and, listen to a previous pod if you want to hear that full story. But it being the first person Pokemon Blue, if someone else had been the first person Pokemon Blue, I would have been like, oh shit, well, I didn't know he's terminally ill. Must be terminally ill. For him to have something that good, then it's a real shame. He must be terminally ill. You know what I mean? Always trying to find some sort of balance to balance out the fact that, because, just me getting a present for my brother's birthday, I always had to have some sort of way of figuring out the balance of why I didn't have something because I was spoiled, right? So because I would do that, or see someone with a car, a big fancy car, not that I fancy cars, but I'd have to be like, oh, well, they clearly have, small penis. That's why people say they have a small penis, because people can't get over the kind of jealousy of people having a big fancy car. So similarly, if people have been really like abrasive or dickheady or bullyish, I've always kind of thought, oh shit, it must be. I've always had an empathy for the fact that there's maybe no such thing as an asshole. That people are just insecure, and it comes out in different ways. People brag because they're insecure. People, talk down to people because they're insecure. People, don't want to laugh at your jokes because they might see that as a weakness, or they might, whatever it might be. It's always some sort of insecurity. Do you know what I mean? I tell you what what I despise though is people who have a bad temper and they take it out on other people. And I kind of don't care then. I kind of don't care. If you have some kind of thing stewing inside you and it doesn't occur to other people, you have my complete sympathy or empathy. But if you now as a grown adult haven't been able to figure out your temper, and that comes out in various ways and you're being kind of cruel to people, I can't get behind that. And I'm not going to give any specifics. I'm going to be very careful here, not giving any specifics. But I did work. I won't give any specifics here. I worked on this project, and there was someone involved in the making of this project, and they were a little bit older, and they real vibe, real fidgety, real like hey, a lizard, but like looking around, not things to slag, but things to do a big fucking pseudo-intellectual verbose bit on, and I know that's me saying pseudo-intellectual and then verbose, but and real kind of fidgety, and a bit older. So there was younger people kind of there, and they were laughing about stuff and references this person didn't get. They brought the room to a standstill to talk about why they don't get what's going on, and making this big, trying to top the joke because they don't get what the hell was going on, and just being really loud, not being able to read people at all, just being. But also really, really passive aggressive, because we got this big long email, and the email was too long. It was obviously too fucking long for what the thing was. And then we were all kind of chatting about the thing, and someone said, "Look, can you maybe just summarize the email? Because I'm not exactly sure what we're meant to focus on and what someone else in the group is meant to focus on." And they were like, "Well, if you actually just read the fucking email, acting like not even good enough at wearing the mask to come across as passive aggressive, just outright aggressive, but." Out of courtesy. Do you know that sometimes out of courtesy I'm going to read that as that you were joking. Do you know what I mean? But the mask kept slipping throughout the rest of this thing, and towards the end it was a long project. Towards the end, someone just asked a question at the end, and I know I'm so sorry these aren't giving you no specifics here, but just for the sake of this, someone just asked one question about how they wanted the jump to be done, and then this person just screamed, being, "Just do it as it's fucking written! Just fucking do it as it's fucking written!" And I was so tired that and I'm not a brave man. I was all like, don't you fucking dare. Don't you dare talk to someone like that. How dare you talk to anyone like that? What are you doing? What are you doing? What's wrong with you talking to someone like that? And this person's older than me. I should be like, oh, daddy. But I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And like it totally ruined the whole vibe of it. And then big long, apology and all this stuff. But I'd never seen anything like that. And I've had that happen to me a couple of times, and not like like in retail or in sales. I mean, like since being in the entertainment industry, like I got this call a while back about, and again, I can't risk going into specifics, and someone just calling me absolutely flustered because, they forgot to do something, essentially. Something landed on their desk. They forgot to do something, and they were asking me if I could do something for them, do a bit of work for them. And I wasn't booked in to do anything for, I normally require a bit of notice, and it's not like a live thing. It's not like it was like a live event that I wasn't showing up for, something else. And them calling me, and I was like, well, no, sorry, that's just a bit short notice. I can't come in today. I can come in first thing in the morning. I could come in any time the rest of the week. But like, it's 2:00 now. You want me in there in an hour? I can't do that. And then she said, this woman said, okay, Grant. Well, look, I mean, I know you're meant to be doing a bit of work with us on this. But if you can't come in, maybe we'll just find someone else to do the work, And I'd love to say that I told her to go fuck herself. I'd love you to tell her. But I said, oh, no, sorry. Literally, I was like, shrink. I'm a boy. And this person in middle management is the 8-foot vampire lady from Resident Evil 8. Now all of a sudden, and I'm a child, and I was like, okay, no, I will. Oh, sorry, I'll come in. No, sorry, I will come in. Just them kind of passive aggressive. Is this a joke? If it's not a joke, you're an asshole, and I'm shocked by this. You know what I mean? And so I did, I went in, and I was like, I'm never doing this. I'm never doing this again. Again, I'm the luckiest man. Fell into a barrel of tits. I'm the luckiest man in the world. But I'm not taking any, like, literally, honestly, the stress from the young fella today, not being able to shit and missing his nap. Like, I'm enough stress. Enough stress because you someone in your office is passing the book. You know what I mean? So I was like, no, it's fine. Like, if you're gonna sack me, you're gonna sack me. I mean, I'll go over your head about it. But if you feel the need to try and do a weird little flex here, that's totally fine. I have no real issue with that. At least I'm trying to. But this was like early days of just been on very little sleep and with the kid and everything, and I was never again. So passive aggressiveness, or it's actually just I keep acting like it's a double bluff, but it's just people being directly aggressive, and confrontational, and then I'm reading it as kind of, wow, this cool kind of double bluff. Are they joking? Are they not joking? When they're really not joking at all, and it's very clear they're not joking. But I think I'm going to start taking things at face value and say, can I just check? Are you threatening to not renew my work if I don't respond to coming in within an hour's notice when I've got a child at home? You know what I mean? Just shine a big old calm light on it, like dogging. Okay, next question. What's your best piss story? Anything mad happen? Ridiculous location next to a celeb. My dad pissed next to Mel Gibson before. We talked about it a lot. My best, I've mentioned it on the pod, was my piss story was when I was in Temple Bar, and I literally just started pissing. I only started pissing, and a guard showed up as I started pissing. And literally, like, the first drop hadn't hit the ground. And so he was just standing there looking at me, and I didn't say anything, and he didn't say anything. But because the piss kept going, and of course he's a fucking man, he knows I can't stop once I start. But it looked like he saw me start the crime, and then acknowledged he was there and continued the crime. Like, saw me stab the guy, and then while maintaining eye contact, go stab, 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 stab. I'm sorry about this. Stab, stab, stab. And then he told me off for that. But you know what? Should have been like, bro, you got a cock, am I right? My friend, come here. You strike me as a man who has a cock like myself, eh? What would you do? What would you do, my friend? You got a cock like myself. I didn't want to have to queue to go into an establishment. My friend, please, what would you do? You got a cock like myself. Oh, that's another thing. That Scaldy gaff that I was at, where with Mr. Mistopheles, there was a person there who had a load of like hand poke tattoos, and one was literally from his hand, from the back of his hand up to his shoulder, was a hand poked tattoo of a cock, and the balls were on the hand. And at the time, I was like, that's Badass. That's awesome. That's awesome you did that. But I got some very shit tattoos, so I can't throw stones. Nick Kennedy, Chansey, Clefairy, and Jigglypuff. Fuck, marry, kill. Okay. I would marry Jigglypuff. Bit of personality, keep me on my toes. Hope when I bloody fall asleep when she's singing, she'd draw all over my face. I don't know if you've seen the old cartoon. I'd wear the absolute whole off Chansey with the egg. Like, you know, little pouch. Marsupials have always a bit of, I don't know, a bit of a soft spot for marsupials. And Clefairy, I think, is outright ugly. And not that I want to kill the ugly, but doesn't appeal to me in a romantic or intimate level in any capacity. So Clefairy, I'd put Clefairy in a Pokeball, and I'd fuck it off the sea. I'd fuck her off the sea. Okay, is this any good? Thank you very much for accepting this as a pod this week. I'm totally spent with the Eurovision stuff at the moment. Okay, all right. Tom asks a ranking of your favorite movies that you've cried to, going from slightly sweaty eyes to full on Tusken Raider. Right. I mean, the first movie I remember trying to hide back my tears was Ghost, and I sometimes watch it. You know, I'm seldom that hungover where I want to hurt myself and watch something that upsets me. I'd seldom get that bad anymore, which is great, which is great. But yeah, sometimes I watch that scene if I just want a quick little, you know, feel alive. And like all the strings of Unchained Melodies playing again, and he's all like, he was like Patrick Swayze, and the fact that Patrick Swayze's an actual ghost now. You know, and he says, "The love, Molly, you take it with you." And I was like, wow, I don't really know what that means. That's just the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. And Demi Moore with her big wet eyes. And then as well, I cried in The Nutty Professor when Dave Chappelle's laying into Clump. Because I was a bit chubby as well at the time, and that hit me hard. And my ma was just trying to be like, you okay, you okay? And I was like, what you fucking, you know, when he's getting bullied in front of Miss Purdy. And I was bawling my eyes. I thought it was so cruel. And I felt for him. And something hit a nerve with me. And I don't get emotional about it now. Poor fucking Clump. It's such a fucking shit film. Such a shit film now. But at the time, groundbreaking. He's playing all the same characters. Wow. And then they just changed out Jada Pinkett with Janet Jackson. I tell you, I mean, this is the thing. I'm so comfortable now. Watch Coco again. I watched Coco again, and she's like, Grandma Coco, like, remember me. And she starts singing as well. And oh my God, just the animation of her little fucking face. Oh, I was bawling with Terry. And I like that. And I like comfortably bawling with my wife. Bawled at, I wasn't bawling, I was crying at Nomadland. And I really enjoy crying. I wanted a good one off Soul. Didn't get a good enough one off Soul. Thought there was a coward's way out at Soul. I think he should have stayed permanent. No, I don't want to spoil it. But all right, you did ask for a ranking. Okay, I would say on the lighter end of things. Let me actually go the heavy. The heaviest I've ever cried, just because the state I was in. It could have actually been after that Scaldy Gaffer, was watching Her, Spike Jonze film with Joaquin Phoenix, and the end of that. Oh my God! I don't know why that hit me so hard. Me and Terry were just mute. We were mute, and I was just tears falling, beautiful, beautiful tears, just tickling down my face. It felt amazing. It was great. That was probably the hardest I've cried in recent memory. Ghost is the hardest I've cried, and I was just like, I was inconsolable. E.T., I was like, fuck off home, you ugly twat. Get out of here, you loser. Stadia. Giving me nightmares. Giving me thinking that you're chasing me up the stairs. You know, piss off. You know? So yeah, the heaviest Lion King at the time, I was like, it was incredulous. I don't believe it. What are you talking about? Dead. And then and then eventually Timon. By the time I kind of came around to the idea, Timon and Pumbaa were there, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's fine. I don't think I cried too hard at that. Yeah, Ghost and Her, for whatever reason, are probably the two I've cried the most at. Up, I just had never seen that and so sad. Like, I don't think I'd ever seen that sad. The other ones are like kind of beautiful goodbyes and things like that. But Up is just outright sad. And is this any good? Yeah, Ghost and Her, the Spike Jonze film, for whatever reason, that just hit me hard. Ian Clean says, you ever been in a fight? I want to see some real scars. You ever been in a fight? No, he says, have you ever been in a fight? Yeah, I used to get in so many fights. I used to get in too many fights. I think that, but I've hung up my gloves now. I realize I'm very bad at it. I've said this before on the pod. I honestly think, I would not enter a crochet tournament to say, with my life on the line, or I would, where if I lost the crochet tournament, I'd have my head kicked in. I would never do that. So I don't know why I would ever enter a fighting tournament of all my skills. That would not be one of the strongest. So I would not. So, you just got to view it like that, You're now asking me to compete in this sort of competition. And it's a fighting competition. And you seem really eager. Do you know what I mean? When it's like a kid runs up to you in school being like, do you want to play Top Trumps? Do you want to play Marvel Comics Top Trumps? And I'm like, are these your Top Trumps? Obviously know these Top Trumps. You're very enthusiastic here. No. You're all right, because I think you're going to win. It's the exact same thing being like, you want to fucking go? Being like, I don't want to play your Top Trumps because I think you're going to win. You know what I mean? And it's fine to admit that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bit of toxic masculinity that assumes that we know how to fight when we've never, never once fought. Or at least won. Or at least showed any promise. Unless it was throwing a pillow really hard at a couch, you fucking dickhead. Andy, you dick, and throwing a pillow at a couch. You know what I mean? Didn't really show much promise there. So why would I enter? So I haven't really had a fight since I was like 21. Last fight I was in outside the Harcourt Diner. Ended up in St. James's because I was booted a lad up the arse so hard it hurt my foot. Turned out it was fine, just a sore foot. Although he smashed my glasses now. That's the thing. You never know what the rules are going to be. Are we doing this ethically or are we not? He could be gouging my eyes. I can't predict that. So I've been in a lot of fights, but I haven't done it recently. I always be running my mouth. Not running my mouth, but I didn't want anyone fucking talking down to me. Now you can say whatever you want to me. Now you can say anything. It's like that's your reality. I'm not going to enter your. You can't goad me into some sort of competition here. But yeah, I used to. I got in one fight, and this was a stupid mistake on my part. I got in a fight, and then my mum came to pick me up, and this one was like 12 from Marino, and my mum picked me up, and I would look like I had my head kicked in. I got beat up by two guys. Long story short, one of them called me fat, and I lit one of their bikes on fire. But like a saddle, it wasn't go up in flames, but I tried to light his bike on fire. Because he said in front of girls. Do you know what I mean? I mean, honestly, if I had a nuke, but all I had was matches. So tried to light his bike on fire. Man came over, pushed me. I think I threw the first punch. And then I learned very quickly that I'm totally in it in my depth. But anyway, I had my head kicked in by these guys. Well, not physically, but I got beat up by these guys. And then my mum came to pick me up. And I was so conscious of the fact that I tried to set this guy's bike on fire that I'd kind of started the fight, that I didn't want to get in trouble with my mum as well. So my mum was like, oh my God, what happened? Like I look like shit. And so I just said, rather than saying, look, Mum, I've been in a fight. It's fine though. They stopped it, and I don't really see him around that often anyway. Rather than say that, which would have made sense, my mum would have been relieved with that. I said, it wasn't my fault. 12 lads hopped me. They said they're coming back. And I was not good. My mum was terrified for weeks. I'd be leaving the gaff, and she'd be like, "Oh God, don't go." And I'm like, "I'll be fine. It'll be fine." And then I'd come home, and she'd be like, "Did you see those lads?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" "Oh no, they're not around." There was some rough enough boys in Marino. I remember one time there was a guy, and his whole rep was like, I just remember people saying, "No, he's really bad. Like he hits girls," and I was like, "Fuck, Jesus." Like, this is sort of etiquette we're talking about here. You know, he's like, oh, he hits girls. Like, he's beating up girls. I'm like, fucking hell. But he kind of didn't. He wasn't carrying himself like a schwa, you know. Like, he wasn't. There was no fuck all shapes on him, you know. But he definitely had this kind of static energy, lizard kind of vibe. And I was cycling my bike around. I was, for whatever reason, this summer. You know, you're on a bike all summer. And like everyone sits on the walls, and you're sitting on your bike. You're always just there on the bike, one foot on the bike, one foot on the ground, kind of vibe, you know. So this summer I was cycling around my bike, and he goes, "Oh, here, give us a shot of your bike." And earlier on, my mate had said, "Look, people have been robbing bikes, and what they do is they ask you for a shot of your bike, then they cycle it off, and then they come back, they leave it in their gaff, and they come back and they say, 'Oh, sorry, man, I crashed your bike. Look, it's around this area,' you know," and then they point you in the wrong direction, and you go, and you know, by the time you come back, they're gone. I don't know why they don't just take the bike and then completely disappear, but maybe it's, oh shit, someone must have taken your bike after I crashed it, or some shit. I don't know what the whole plan was. We were children. So I'd heard this, and he says, "You can have a shot of your bike," and I said, "Oh, I'm actually cycling home. Sorry, man." And he goes, "Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, well, why don't you fuck off home? And if I see you back in this fucking green again, I'll fucking kill you." And I was like, so I was living in fear, just living in a state of fear. Just that summer, just a bit of fear all summer. You know what I mean? There was another tough boy from Marino, and sort of like you cross over to, you know, the other side of the road. So I saw him coming down the road, crossed over to the other side of the road, and then he came over to my side of the road. And I was like, that doesn't bode well. You know, you can feel a static, you know, like Halle Berry as Storm is just going to come down from the ground, like tick, 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 or Raiden's showing up. So he crossed over, and he was like, "Were you fucking slagging me, ma?" And I was like, "I don't even know your ma. Why would I slag your ma?" You know. And the lads were slagging me after. Anyway, he beat me up then. He smacked me like 3 or 4 times. And the lads were slagging me, being like, "Why don't you say no? You were giving him you were talking too much." And I was like, "Don't fucking tell me I did that wrong. Don't tell me I did that wrong." They were like, "You sure? Why you just kept saying I don't know your ma? Why did you say that? Why did you bring up his ma?" And I was like, "I didn't. I just you said I was slagging his ma." So yeah, it's not for me. Not for me. The old. But I'm gonna start jiu-jitsu now when people can, just so I can have it, just so I know, you know. I don't like the fact that my older brother can kick my ass. My younger brother can kick my ass too, but you know, my older brother now he's into his jits, and so I'll have to be looking at joining some jits. Anyway, Rebecca Griffith asks, what was one of the most awkward moments of your life? Something you wake up in the middle of the night and still get the fear of it when it pops into your head. The worst one ever, hands down. And I've talked about it a couple of times. Maybe not on the pod, actually. I think I talked about it on a panel show. Where I was in... My brother was like... So basically, we're in the schoolyard, right? You know the schoolyard where they ring the bell once and you have to freeze and then the day before. So we were in the schoolyard and I was like asking my older brother if I could hang out with his mates. And he's like, "No, you're not hanging out with my mates. You're not. We're doing cool boy stuff. You know what I mean? You'll only embarrass me." You know, when that 2 years is like the biggest 2 years, and he was like, "Don't." And eventually I pestered him, and I was like, "Please, just let me hang out with your mates just for the lunch break." So I pestered him. He's like, "All right, fine. Just don't fucking say anything. Just don't say anything, right? Just be there, right?" So he brought me over to his mates, and I went over to one of them I thought I knew, and I was like, "What's the story, Anto?" And he goes, "My name's not Anto." And my brother just looked at me and was like, "Don't do this. Don't do this." And I'm like, "Well, that's just what I call you. That's my nickname for you. In fact, I got nicknames for all you boys." And I just went around to each of these lads, just making up names, just acting like this is what I do. I just call people names. And I'm like, You're Red, sir." Some ginger lad. "Call you Spots." Chap with freckles. And I went through each lad, you know. And then I got to the end, and there was Anto. I should have started on the other end. There was the actual Anto. I just mixed up the two lads. And meanwhile, my brother's like, stop, was miming, stop. And like, everyone is dead quiet. All you hear is the sound of my shuffling school uniform as I'm walking around to these boys, pointing and making up names on the spot. Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. All right, one more. All right, Robbie Graham says, "Where in the name of God are the adventures of Fuckler disappeared to?" I believe you're talking about my my teen drama, The Frigid, starring Boner and Fuckler and the boys. It's been over a year since I've done it, and that's the mad thing. These things just fucking slip away. So here's my commitment to you. Next week, season 2, kicking off Boner's adventures in my teen drama, The Frigid. It's coming next week. There you go. There you are. So glad you asked. Thank you very much, everyone who submitted questions for this. Questions for this pod were submitted through the Patreon. And look, let me tell you this. If you like this kind of format, I do more Q&As over on the Patreon. In fact, I do loads of stuff over on the Patreon. I've done episodes on like my favorite emo songs. I've done like the Star Wars prequels. I've watched Home Alone. I do movie reviews. I have people have argued that it's a better podcast over there because I'm a bit more relaxed. And I like doing it. I like doing both podcasts. But in general, if you just like this podcast and you would like to maybe give something back in exchange for getting this podcast for free, maybe you've been listening for a while, you thought, you know what, I'm maybe in the position, maybe I got a new job, maybe my circumstances have changed and I can throw this guy a couple of quid, feel free to do so over on the Patreon for the equivalent of a price of a pint a month. You can get 4 extra pods every single month. You can also, now it'll become more interesting, and more on this later, when gigs start happening again, you get early access to all gigs that will be sold, will be on, or whatever. You get early access to gigs. You get early access to merch, all the merch that I put out recently, which I'll be doing more of. I'm going to be doing that on a kind of seasonal basis with different things from the pod. You get first dibs on that. You get first dibs on everything because I love you. I love you anyway, but I love you if you're over there as well. And because you've been generous to me, I want to be generous to you. So, but also I want to thank someone who's been generous for this pod, the Dublin Irish Whiskey. Go check out their new Rascals Smoked Stout beer cask range over on the dld.ie, and check out their L Triangle on YouTube. It's pretty good. Thank you very much, Dublin Irish Whiskey. And look, I'll be back here on Friday if you're over on the Patreon. But if not, I'll be back here with Fuckler and the boys. Why not? Next Tuesday. And I'll see you then. All the best. Bye-bye.
It's only Cantwell Shitshow.